Good morning, everybody. A Merry Christmas to you. And we break our Christmas break really to bring a very important piece of information to you. I have been receiving several phone calls, and certainly the United Workers' Party have been receiving numerous phone calls about the recent saga in the CIP scandal. We note that the St. Lucia Labour Party officials, party stalwarts, hacks, executive members, they're all celebrating that Martinez, Philip Martinez, the whistleblower in the CIP scandal, the man who has uncovered the CIP fraud in the Caribbean, that his somehow withdrawing the RICO case results to a victory for the Labour Party. Well, the United Workers' Party disagrees. There's no victory for the Labour Party. In fact, what we will do today, we will explain to you, we've got three speakers that I will be introducing that will explain to you why they should not be celebrated, why the Labour comrades have been premature in their celebration. So, with me this morning, we have got the political leader of the United Workers' Party, Honorable Alan Chasney, who's also the member for Micoud South in the House of Assembly and the official leader of the opposition. We've also got the deputy political leader of the United Workers' Party, my colleague Guy Joseph, who will be coming on a bit later, and the former Minister of Economic Affairs. And we've also got the Public Relations Officer of the United Workers' Party, former Minister of Social Transformation and Equity, Mr. Spider Montoute, also the former MP for Grizzly. So we're going to get right to the discussion now. We've got members of the press who are here to ask questions. I just want to introduce you to a document, and this document is really a defense motion put in by the Labour Party officials. In their defense, they've used thousands of your money to defend themselves in the U.S. court. Now, even though they have said that this was a personal matter, but you, the taxpayers, are footing the bill. So first up, I want to call on the Public Relations Officer of the United Workers' Party, Mr. Spider Montoute, to address you this morning.
Thank you very much, Senator Fede and Deputy Political Leader of the United Workers' Party. Let me say a pleasant good morning and take this opportunity to say season's greetings to everyone, those of you present here, those of you listening through live stream. Pleasant good day and season's greetings to all St. Lucians in St. Lucia and abroad. I would have wished that if I were to address you at this time, it would be under different circumstances for different reasons. But unfortunately, we are where we are today because for the last 3.5 years, there's one constant, and that is a government that has lost its way, a government without a plan, and a government that is running St. Lucia down to a downward spiral, and of course, with no resolution in sight. Let me just say, before I address the main issue at hand, that we have a number of crises in St. Lucia today, and many of those you're very familiar with. We have our situation with the deal that went down with GBH. We have the deal that went down with NH. We have the loan of the National Lottery, which pose many questions that are still unanswered. We have, for example, the HIA, which has not started up to now, and no explanations for this. We have the St. Jude's Hospital, after 3.5 years, still not completed. Our road situation, the high gas prices, the high prices of goods in St. Lucia, the cost of living as a whole, the oppressive 2.5% tax, and all of those issues remain on the backs of Saint Lucia as we come to the end of this year. Of course, the only record that the present government has to talk about is an unenviable record, is a startling, frightening record, which it appears that they have perfected and is bettering every year. I use the word bettering, but for us, it is in fact frightening. And that is the fact that we have already broken the previous record that was set in previous years of 75 homicides. The rate of homicides, the rate of murders that takes place on the streets of St. Lucia and in the homes of St. Lucians continue to rise, while we have a Prime Minister and Minister of National Security who does not think that it is even worth speaking about. And those of us who raise the alarm, those of us who express our concern, those of us who try to suggest that something be done are called unpatriotic. We are accused of wanting to see the demise of our country, and so much so the Prime Minister has even accused some of us as praying for murders to take place in this country. I want to remind the Prime Minister that he is the only one who does not seem to be concerned, he and his government. And all he has done is provide employment to his colleagues and use nomenclature related to crime to suggest that something is being done about crime. But it is obvious that nothing is being done, and if anything is being done, it's certainly not enough, and he has continued to be a failure, and the failure is more glaring every year. As we can see this year, we have passed the 75 threshold and counting. God forbid, I'm hoping that we will have a peaceful season where no more St. Lucians will perish as a result of violent crime. But I mentioned a number of the crises. I did not mention the CIP, which is a scandal of mammoth proportions, a biggest scandal St. Lucia has ever witnessed, in the sense that we are talking about over 3 billion EC dollars that is unaccounted for which questions are not being answered. And we know that, as indicated by Senator Dominic, that there was this RICO case in the United States that was filed against officials and the CIP of St. Kitts and St. Lucia, and that the news has come out that Mr. Martinez, who was the plaintiff, has dropped the RICO case. That seemed to be a big relief to the government, and they are claiming vindication. They have put out, they meaning the CIP, the CIP has put out a statement indicating that the dropping of the case suggests that there was no merit in the first place. Now let me just say that the United States courts would not have entertained the matter if there was no merit to it in the first place. That is one. Number two, Martinez didn't simply out of the blue drop the case, and I want to suggest that if the CIP unit and the government of St. Lucia were so confident of their innocence, they could have gone to the courts and prove it beyond any doubt. Or they had the option of coming out to St. Lucians to whom they are accountable and clear the air on the questions that were raised, the relevant, pertinent, credible questions that were raised about the program. Instead, what they did was to file a motion to have themselves protected through diplomatic immunity. So they sought that protection, and Martinez realizing, and let me just say that the fact that Mr. Felipe Martinez filed that case, Mr. Martinez filed the case predominantly for his own interests, because he felt that in the matter that he was being in some way disadvantaged, and so he wanted to recuperate his losses through the courts. That is a matter for Mr. Martinez. However, in the process of exposing look, some of the facts and the issues surrounding his case, we St. Lucians have discovered through evidence that were revealed that we were experiencing fraud against the state of St. Lucia, against our CIP program, and that there are many questions to be answered and explained. And so let me just indicate the unresolved issues and unanswered questions that still remain despite the fact that that case has been dropped, have not gone away, and will not go away unless and until the government and the CIP unit comes out and provide us with the answers and explanations. The CIP units stated that the lawsuit had no merit and that the withdrawal of the lawsuit underscores the lack of credibility surrounding the claims. Well, I do not wish to engage in this argument. My argument is Mr. Martinez, in his quest to pursue the matter, revealed certain documents. For example, the actual contract that was signed between the CIP unit of St. Lucia and Galaxy, which indicated that some 11,000 passports, now people refer to it as units, as files and so on. I will remain with my layman references. It's passports that are being sold, and they tell you it is citizenships that are being sold, but the symbol of our citizenship is our passport. So for me, there were at least 11,000 passports available to Galaxy to be sold, which would amount to over $1 billion US dollars, which would amount to about 3 billion EC dollars. My question, and the question that every St. Lucian should have on their minds today, given those facts that are irrefutable and indisputable, is why in the case of the real estate program, they were issued over 5,000 passports when a hotel was supposed to have been built and the sale of the passport would far exceed the amount that would provide the funding for that hotel. What happens to the excess? Where does it go to? Where has it gone to? Where is it? Those pertinent questions have not been answered and must be answered. It is owed to us St. Lucians. It is our patrimony. It is our sovereignty. It is our property that has been sold to foreigners, and we deserve, we are entitled to an explanation as to what has happened to those funds. It is being speculated that people are being paid. The time, despite what the Prime Minister thinks, the time for speculation is no more. We want direct, definitive answers from our government. And if it has to be that the matter has to go to court for us to get answers, then so be it. But I am saying, as a citizen of this country, I should not have to take my government to court for them to account to me about what is my business and what is my interest in this country. And so I'm calling on the government and the CIP unit to understand that the dropping of the RICO case has not absolved them or exonerated them from the pertinent questions that are still outstanding, that are still on the minds of St. Lucians, and for us to get the satisfaction and comfort that, in fact, what seemed to be mass fraud and corruption is actually not the case. And so I made reference to the real estate program. There is also the infrastructure program, where some 6,000 passports were issued. My question is, first of all, what does that mean, the infrastructure program? What infrastructure? Okay, they talked about housing to the tune of how much? Why were so many passports approved? Remember, in the case of the real estate program, the United Workers' Party, when in office, approved about 750 passports for that hotel to be built. Why then there was an increase of over 4,000 additional passports so that Galaxy could build that very same hotel. Why? Why the extra passports, and where does that extra money go to? I ask those questions because these are pertinent questions. It is our passport, it is our money, and we need an account for that. That has nothing to do with Martinez. The fraud is being perpetrated against St. Lucians. The corruption that is taking place is taking place by our government officials, aided and abetted by foreigners, and it is this country that is at a loss, and the people of St. Lucia that are being deprived of much needed resources that could have gone to many of the outstanding problems that need to be resolved in this country. And so we still do not know where that money is. Is there an escrow account? Who is in charge of that escrow account? How much money is in that escrow account? And what are the arrangements for the withdrawal of that money? Again, Mr. Martinez, in his quest, in filing his case, also revealed that there was underpricing taking place in our CIP program. And that is, again, an illegal act. Okay, that was revealed, and we need an explanation about this. Why was it allowed? Why was it taking place? And what has been done or is being done to remedy that situation? And so, like I said, do not come beating your chest now and behaving as if you have been absolved and you are exonerated. There is no vindication in the fact that the case was dropped, because as Mr. Martinez stated, and that is for him, a matter for him, he said that it will be too costly for him to pursue the matter in light of the fact that our officials have claimed diplomatic immunity to protect themselves from facing the courts. He has handed the information to the Department of Justice, and it is up to the Department of Justice, given the evidence that were presented to them, whether they are going to pursue the matter in a, this time not civil court, but a criminal court, which means that if this matter is pursued in the criminal court, St. Lucian officials who are affiliated to our CIP program may very well end up having to go to jail in a different jurisdiction. It is not something that we relish. It is not something that we ask for or pray for, like the Prime Minister will want to suggest, because that, not only the individuals concerned will be affected, but the reputation of our country and the credibility of our program will be at stake. Already, the integrity of our program has been severely compromised by what has happened and the exposure of the evidence that has been put out there already. We have to do everything now to restore the integrity and the credibility of our CIP program. And while I'm not the biggest fan of the CIP program, given our circumstance with the limited resources that we have access to, it is one of the avenues where this country can raise much needed resources to assist us in providing for the needs, the many needs of our country in the area of healthcare, in the area of education, in the area of security, in the area of infrastructural development. So, I call on the government to stop hiding behind immunity, diplomatic immunity. Yes, you can escape the case in the United States because Mr. Martinez has indicated and announced that he has dropped the case, but you cannot escape the unresolved issues and unanswered questions that remain here for us in St. Lucia as we grapple with exactly what it is that has happened to the sale of our passports and the monies derived from the sale of that passport. We are talking billions, okay? So money that St. Lucia can ill afford to allow to go begging, to go astray, and we want to know that our officials are above board, that they can show that they have the integrity that is required of public officials, that they are not involved in anything untoward, that they are not part of any corrupt activity, okay, aided and abetted by any foreign company, and that St. Lucians will get what is justly theirs, and that is the revenue derived from the sale of our passports through our CIP program. So I will stop at this point right here, and I will introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker will be the Deputy Political Leader, Mr. Guy Joseph, who is a former parliamentary representative for Castries East and former Minister for Economic Affairs in St. Lucia. Castries Southeast, sorry. I would love to see a different representative for Castries East, and perhaps that's why, I made that error. And so let me just say that as I call on Mr. Joseph, I ask St. Lucians, as they go through the festive season and enjoy themselves during the holidays, please let us try to resolve our differences, our conflicts in an amicable way, and that we do not resort to further violence, to further compound the situation as exists with the number of homicides. This does not only take away lives, that is irreplaceable and irretrievable, but it can also cause many problems for survivors, okay, and even the perpetrators and survivors, as well as the fact that it poses a threat to our economic development in St. Lucia, given the fact that, as you know, our main economic earner, our main income earner is tourism, which is a very fickle industry, and we do not want to go into 2025 any worse off than we are. I'm hoping that 2025 will bring much needed improvement in a lot of areas, and that our government will understand that they are not here to preside over the demise of our country. But as they promised, we are supposed to deliver to St. Lucian an improvement in the quality of life, in the standard of living, and in the preservation of our livelihood. Ladies and gentlemen, all the best to you, and have a productive and happy festive season. Merry Christmas to you, and a much better 2025 than we had in 2024. Thank you.
Good morning to everyone. As I join my voice to the discourse this morning in relation to what appears to be a celebration by the CIP unit and other persons within St. Lucia, I will continue from where my colleague left off. I will begin first of all by taking the opportunity to wish every St. Lucian a happy and peaceful festive season. I trust that we will allow good sense to prevail and conduct ourselves in a manner that is befitting of the season that we are going into. But as an opposition party, we have a responsibility towards the citizens of this country to sound the alarm whenever it is necessary, to indicate the concerns of the political party and St. Lucia at large. At this moment, I want to put things into perspective so that we begin to understand, because I believe that the Labour Party is very knowledgeable about the use of diplomatic immunity. And I begin my discourse in this area for the simplest reason. It brings back to mind the issue of Dr. Wali Jufali, who was given diplomatic status for St. Lucia, representing us at the IMO, to which the information is he never attended a meeting. Dr. Ernest Hille at the time was the High Commissioner in the UK. And I remember when Tim asked the question about the diplomatic passports, he said he was not the one issuing diplomatic passports. And that is true, he was not the one issuing diplomatic passports, but he knew what had transpired. I have in my hand here today, when people want to say that their names are clear, I have in my hand here a letter from the Director of Audit to the Director of Finance, dated February 3rd, 2021. And this letter speaks about an account. The account number is 7391546. 7391546. And from the audit report, it highlights that this account was not opened in the proper manner. That account was opened on the 13th of January 2015. However, supporting information on the manner of which the account was opened, necessary approvals from the Department of External Affairs and the Accountant General was not seen at the embassy. Now, that is not my point of focus. My point of focus is whenever Ernest Hille is featured, there are questionable issues. And I know he has threatened on a number of occasions to take persons to court. He said he has never had an account with anybody except, not even his wife, a joint account. The information here of the £66,180 that was on that account, there are details of these accounts. Where am I going with this? The issue of diplomatic immunity, which the British had requested be withdrawn from Wali Jufali, the government of Saint Lucia took a position that they were not going to do so. We were promised, and it was mentioned in the Parliament of Saint Lucia by none other than Dr. Anthony himself, that we had been promised a research center for diabetes by Dr. Jufali, who had received a number of diplomatic passports for himself and his family. The question still remains, where is the money for that research center? Was that money ever given? Because obviously if you received the passport, then you had your commitments. We come to the issue at hand and the statement made by the CIP unit that they've been vindicated. I take the position today, and I continue to applaud Mr. Martinez for the information that he made available to us in Saint Lucia. Prior to his research and his findings, we would not have known of all of these passports and files that have been granted to Galaxy. Now, in my hand here is the agreement dated 3rd November 2023 between the government of Saint Lucia, acting herein and represented by the minister with whom the Citizenship by Investment Program is assigned, the Honorable Dr. Ernest Hille, and BMAX LLC, a private limited liability company. And we've dealt with that in the past. But while the CIP unit wants to celebrate, I want them to answer the following questions I am posing. Whereas BMAX has secured the requisite financing, and that is on page 3 of the agreement. The requisite financing of 23 million United States dollars for the construction cost and 2,250,000 for the construction management cost to complete the project. According to this agreement, construction timing, phase 1, commencing February 1st, 2024. Phase 2, commencing July 1st, 2024. Phase 3, commencing 1st November 2024. An estimated completion time of the project, June 1st, 2025. BMAX was permitted to sell 628 passport files, and a file can be up to 4 passports, at a cost of $100,000 US single and $150,000 per family, raising approximately $90 million for a $25 million project. And as we speak today, anybody can go up to Rock Hall and see that none of the phases have been commenced or have commenced. Phase 1, 2, and 3 should have commenced. Phase 1 and 2 should have been completed. Phase 3 should be ongoing. And phase 4, or the completion, should be in place. Nothing has happened there. Where is the $90 million that BMAX is supposed to have collected? Because the project never, the agreement does not say BMAX would have to collect the money to do so. The contract says that BMAX had secured the money. The second one I will highlight is the agreement between the CIP unit again and Caribbean Galaxy. This agreement highlights what, and this agreement was made on the 1st of December 2022. Citizenship by Investment Board. Again, here are the persons acting herein and represented by Lon Theophilus, Chairman, and Julian Charles, Deputy Chair of the CIB, and thus duly authorized to act in this part, and Caribbean Galaxy, the developer. In this agreement, another set of thousands of files were granted. We heard the minister say this money does not belong to Saint Lucia. I want to know who the money belongs to, and that is for the Canals Resort. The CIP unit, in its haste to put out a press statement of the case pertaining to Mr. Martinez, should be equally eager to tell us the status of these projects, how many of the 5,000 files have been sold, and where the money is. Then we have another agreement between BMAX. This one is a 13-page agreement. This one is a 28-page agreement between Galaxy and the government of Saint Lucia. And this agreement was made on the 26th day of March, 2000. Let me get the correct date for you. I'm looking at the wrong document. The arrangement with Galaxy on the, I have too many documents here, on the, not the real estate, the infrastructure project. Apparently, I misplaced my infrastructure agreement. But the infrastructure agreement to spend $100 million in infrastructure projects, which was to be paid through the sale of our CIP passports, we have not seen the year of infrastructure bring out anything. Yes, this one is a 15-page document. The government of Saint Lucia herein acting by the, and this was dated the 12th, or came into effect the 12th of January 2024. Caribbean Galaxy, a limited liability company incorporated in Saint Lucia, have a registered, well, you don't need that registration and all of that, but I want to make the point that Caribbean Galaxy was granted the option of constructing roads in Saint Lucia or engaging local persons and paying them. And we heard so much about the year of infrastructure. Caribbean Galaxy Real Estate on page 3 says, shall be reimbursed for the project through the receipt of qualifying investments of 6,000 applications pursuant to option 3 of the enterprise option on the CIP. So another 6,000 units granted. So the CIP has a responsibility to inform Saint Lucia of what has happened with the infrastructure project. The government of Saint Lucia, the Prime Minister, the Minister for Investment, who is in charge of the CIP, and the Minister of Infrastructure needs to tell Saint Lucians how many passports were sold, how much money did Galaxy collect, and how much of these funds have been spent on our roads. Because when I see the Grosley Road being patched, a road, your main road to the north, and I've said it before, you are supposed to see a patch, you're not supposed to feel the patch on the road. But these patches are like speed bumps, or as somebody described it, it's like the pimple roundabout that we have next to S&S. Our roads remain in a deplorable condition, but our information is revealing that millions and billions of dollars have been collected by the various entities. So as we go into the season, I want St. Lucians to pay attention to what we are saying. There are still no answers. And if Mr. Martinez had no case, why is it that diplomatic immunity is what was used? And I agree with Mr. Martinez. That's not his case to fight. This is a case for St. Lucia to fight. And it is the commitment of this United Workers' Party that we will do what is necessary to find where this money is, to know who received the monies, and what it was used for. Because obviously it's not being used for the Canals Resort, and it is not being used for the infrastructure program. And there's no housing project going on at Rock Hall at this point in time. So the question remains, 628 files, 6,000 files, and 5,000 files. All together. We want the CIP unit, before you begin to celebrate, tell us what has happened. We want the minister to come and explain why they had to use diplomatic immunity. All the accusations leveled at former leader of the United Workers or leader of the United Workers Party and former Prime Minister, Honorable Alan Shasney. I never heard him use diplomatic immunity to clear himself. All the accusations made at me when I was in government, I never had to use diplomatic immunity. In fact, even in a protected environment like the Parliament of Saint Lucia, the rights of the leader of the opposition was breached by the Speaker and others within the Parliament of Saint Lucia. But now, people who may not even be entitled to diplomatic immunity outside of Saint Lucia is getting diplomatic immunity in order not to answer. So Saint Lucia, this is just one chapter of this story. There is a lot more that will be revealed in the new year. And I want to assure you, Saint Lucia is not out of hot water in this situation because the diplomatic immunity will end at some point in time. And in government, we passed a law when we were in office that no matter how many years after, once you operated illegally in government and you were in breach of the Finance Administration Act and these things, there's no statute of limitations. So in due course, those who have acted inappropriately will be called to answer. I ask St. Lucians to pay close attention to what has been happening and don't allow the use of diplomatic immunity, because we saw the case of Rovergate being thrown out because the newly installed acting comptroller of customs went and withdrew the case. So Mr. Healy has not been vindicated on the Range Rover issue. It was just something that the case was not heard. Also, he has not cleared his name on that joint account with Jufali. And neither have the issues pertaining to CIP that he is head of been cleared in any way. So him using and others in St. Kitts using diplomatic immunity to avoid facing the courts may be a bump in the road for now. But that is not the end of this story. And in due course, I know you will hear a lot more about it. May God bless us as we go through the holiday season.
Is that okay? Good morning, everyone. Let me first of all echo some of the things that my colleagues have said, that it's sad that as the leader of the opposition and as an opposition party, that we would have to find ourselves here today on the eve of Christmas and New Year's, at a time when many of the relevant shows have taken a hiatus. But The press statement put out by the CIP unit yesterday is so patently egregious. It is an audacity of the likes that I have not seen for the longest time. I say that because here is a unit over the last 6 months when so many allegations and questions have been brought to the forefront, and we have seen no answers. We still are left in the dark as to who the chairman of the CIP unit is. We're still left in the dark that when the CEO chose to go to Washington, D.C., as to who instructed him to go, who gave him permission. He says he went on state business. The Prime Minister said he went on his own. And the Minister of CIP says he knows nothing. He doesn't know anything. So there are two particular aspects of the statement that I would like to deal with this morning. And I felt it was absolutely necessary to clarify and to seek further clarification on the statement. The first part is where the statement says, this lawsuit had no merit from the outset. It was a frivolous attempt to undermine the credibility of the Citizenship by Investment program and its management. That statement is coming in response to MSR's decision to withdraw the RICO case from the U.S. courts. And the statement by the CIP unit, and let me repeat it again, that this lawsuit had no merit from the outset. It was a frivolous attempt to undermine the credibility of the Citizenship by Investment program and its management. How can that be said? If that was the case, then why did the CEO of the CIP unit go to Washington, D.C.? Why did he feel the urge to do that? If in fact that there was no case to begin with, why would he have gone? Why would the CEO have met with the U.S. law enforcement agents in the U.S.? You know, sometimes to get the answers of these things, we have to go back in time and we have to look at examples in the world. And there was a great book called Animal Farm, written by George Orwell. And it's interesting to note some basic things about Animal Farm. What was it about? The lessons learned from Animal Farm. Animal Farm tells the story of animals who rise up against Mr. Jones and his men and throw them off the farm so that they can enjoy the spoils of their work themselves. It's a story of communism in Russia, when the communists overthrew the czars. And so George Orwell uses a farm to portray the same thing. So in this case, instead of it being human beings, communists, overthrowing the czars, we have a situation where we have the animals in the farm who are providing the labor to make the farm work, overthrow the human beings and kick them out. That's who Mr. Jones represents. This appears to be going well for a little bit, but the honeymoon period does not last long, as the pigs, the smartest ones on the farm, start taking more and more power. Although they say they are doing it for unselfish reasons, it appears that the pigs' reasons are in fact quite selfish. And they and the dogs that protect them end up being the only ones to truly benefit from what the rest of the animals produce. I say that because I think that we have a political party in Saint Lucia, the Labour Party, that's doing the same thing. Said that you needed to elect them and put them into office because they were going to put you first. And that everybody was equal. Isn't that what about putting you first is? Everybody's equal. Everybody's supposed to benefiting. And here we are 3.5 years later, the honeymoon, and we're finding out something very different. The lessons learned from Animal Farm is that oftentimes things never really change in the end, as the pigs ended up having the same amount, if not more power than Mr. Jones ever did. And the pigs and humans are so similar that the story's conclusion that the rest of the animals could no longer tell them apart. So the same persons who are leading this revolution to change Saint Lucia and to put people first in this country and to develop the country to the benefit of all of a sudden we're finding out that there is a double standard in Saint Lucia. The comrades. And it's the book who calls them pigs. And it's the book that calls them dogs. The dogs who protect them. Go around barking all the time. So I'm not calling anybody a pig. I'm not calling anybody a dog. Let's make it very clear. I'm just using the reference from the book of the pigs and the dogs. Very importantly, the book introduces something that's very, very important, that has become a cornerstone of politics in general, and more importantly, bad politics. And that's the word called propaganda. And the book, the story of Animal Farm, shows how propaganda is used. And it uses the example where when the animals took over, the rule, one of the commandments, was that no animal shall kill any other animal. That was something that was used to motivate the base, all the other animals, as to why they should revolt. Because animals were being killed indiscriminately. And so the rule was we're going to take over, and one of the things we're going to do is to make sure that no animal ever kills another animal. A core of the whole thing. And we see in the book that it was eventually changed when the pigs and the dogs became in control, that no animal shall kill any other animal with cause. That's propaganda. That's when all of a sudden you start off with a rule, and that rule no longer applies, and you can't live within the confines of that rule. And so you use propaganda to justify why you're going to make the change. Another one was, all animals are equal. Have we all heard that? We're all equal. Putting you first. Make the analogy. That's what the Labour Party tells us all, that we're all equal. That's what it starts off with, because that's the revolution, that's the ideology that we all buy into. That's what motivates us. When we lived in societies where we don't believe that we're all equal, all of a sudden when you have somebody campaigning on the idea that we're all equal, and remember, the honeymoon ends, and all of a sudden the pigs and the dogs are the ones who are in charge, and it changes now. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Ha! I take time out to bring this out and to describe it because it helps explain for some people why we are here today. Because we started off with a CIP program that was supposed to benefit us all. Get over the idea that we're selling our sovereignty, because that's a price we must pay in order for all of us to benefit. And what is the crime that Mr. Martinez has committed? Why is he the fraudster? Is he the one who has stolen the money from Saint Lucia? Because what's a fraudster? Somebody who's defrauded the state? How do you defraud the state? You take away something that the state or the people in the state that's theirs? What is Mr. Martinez taking away? Mr. Martinez has made it very clear from the onset, and I've made the distinction repeatedly, that Mr. Martinez is trying to recover the monies that he believes that he was defrauded. And the only reason why Saint Lucia was brought into it is because the same players that were in St. Kitts, which is Galaxy and Les Can, are now in Saint Lucia. And they are repeating what they did in St. Kitts. So let's go back to the press statement. This lawsuit had no merit from the onset. Well, the U.S. courts didn't see it like that. When Mr. Martinez applied for a RICO case, indicated there was widespread fraud in a civil case. The court said, yes, the evidence you've provided provides and gives us merit to the case. The U.S. court said there was merit to the case. And it was the same players that when their bank accounts were being subpoenaed, attempted to prevent that from taking place. And you remember there was a euphoria by the same CIP and the same ministers and the same government officials when on a technicality that subpoena was denied. And what was the technicality? Is that they were not served properly. And so when they rectified that, the court granted MSR permission to subpoena the bank records of Les Can, ministers. So the statement, this lawsuit had no merit from the outset, is a lie, is wishful thinking, is intended to be propaganda. It cannot be anything else. When Mr. Martinez revealed for the first time that Claude Emmanuel, in his visit to Washington, D.C., revealed that Galaxy had been given 11,000 files, the spin doctors were put out to convince us all that that was not true. And every single time that the minister of CIP was asked a question, he said, that's confidential information. That's inside information. We had no right to know how many of our passports were being given away. We had no right to ask, where was the money? We had no right to ask how the money was being used. Yet Mr. Martinez persisted. And Mr. Martinez was able to now provide and make available to the public of Saint Lucia the actual contracts that were written. And the contracts themselves reveal a conspiracy against the people of Saint Lucia. That's all I can say to describe it. In the case of Galaxy, the contracts here, in the real estate program, the government amended the contract from 700 files to 5,000 and tried to convince us that this was going to be a bigger hotel. But when you compare the first contract, the 250-room hotel, the 80-room hotel, and the luxury villas, to the new contract, the 250-room hotel, the 80-room hotel, and 300 villas, it's one and the same. There was no change. And in the original contract, the cost was somewhere between $250 to $300 million. So where is the justification to give them $1 billion worth of value of CIP? And if that was not egregious enough, if that was not as outrageous and outlandish and unjustifiable, the contract goes on further to say that they will be paid a commission. So in addition to being a developer building the hotel, Galaxy was also made a promoter. I want us to understand that. Not only were they going to build the hotel, but the government now was going to designate them as a promoter. Simple language. Doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of difference. But the difference is that as a promoter, the government was going to pay them a commission on selling the passports. For themselves, you know, to their own benefit. And the commission that's agreed to be paid is the same as the administrative fee. I want us to understand this. This is important. That they now went from 700 files to 5,000 files. And instead of collecting $300,000, they were going to collect $200,000, and that money was going to go into an escrow account. And the administrative fee that the government is supposed to collect, the $30,000 on every file, that's supposed to come to the CIP unit, to them, that's now being paid to Galaxy as a commission. So I want us to understand that. As a country, we get nada. And how the money is being managed in the escrow account? What are we being told? Not our money. The administrative fee has been given away. And remember, the size of the hotel hasn't changed from what it was in 2018. We get nothing. And their justification for all of this is to say to us, there's going to be an economic impact. The construction of the hotel and the operations of the hotel. That's why we've given away all this money, because that's what we're getting. But let's look at that. Who's building the hotel? Saint Lucians? Or Chinese? Chinese foreign workers. So how is it that we're benefiting during the construction? All the material and equipment is coming from outside of Saint Lucia. All the consultancies, the designs, everything are coming outside of Saint Lucia. All the labor and the equipment to construct it, the government gave Galaxy duty-free to bring into Saint Lucia. So not even the equipment they're renting and the trucks. So there's zero impact. Now, I will argue that there in fact has been a negative impact. Because clearly in the first contract, the mangrove, which was clearly designated as a special protected area by the UN, and it's in the contract, has been destroyed. So not only have we not benefited anything economically, but environmentally and from our own patrimony, our mangrove has been destroyed. We then go on now and ask the question, how much longer do we have to wait before we have a hotel? So this is a hotel that started in 2018. We're now in 2025. No hotel. And anybody who goes down there and anybody who's been down there will tell you, no idea when the hotel is going to get finished. So we've given up $1 billion US dollars, 2.7 billion EC dollars of passport revenue. We've given them a commission of 150 million US dollars, which is in excess of another 400 to 500 million EC dollars. So close to 3 billion EC dollars or more of revenue has been foregone under the pretext that there's supposed to be economic benefit, of which there is none. And as I said, we can conclude that we've actually gotten negative impact because the mangrove has been destroyed. And then this same government, this same minister, and let's not forget what Rick Wayne said, that everything that Ernest Hilaire does must be looked at under a microscope. Because we look at history and we see every major modern controversy. One person, Range Rover, Jufali, CIP, West Indies Cricket Board, name it. He's involved. And so this is the same person whose signature is on the contract. So after Galaxy has not delivered on the hotel and we're getting no money, what do? We turn around and we sign a new contract with Galaxy. And we call it infrastructure. And on the infrastructure program, we give them 6,000 files. And what does the infrastructure contract say? The infrastructure contract says that Galaxy is allowed to collect all of the money themselves. No more escrow account. No more pretending that this money doesn't belong to the state. Give it to them. Give it to them. And in addition to the 100,000 US dollars, they are going to collect the administrative fee. You want to now hear the insanity of this? That after they've collected the money, in order for those persons who make the $100,000 contribution, of which we don't know, because Galaxy is collecting the money themselves, we don't know. In order for them to get their citizenship, all that has to happen is they must be vetted and pay the administrative fee. I want us to understand that. There is nothing in the contract that says a person's citizenship will only be issued when the 100 million US dollars has been spent, or that there's proof that the infrastructure work has been done. No, there's nothing there. What the contract says is their citizenship will be approved when they are vetted and they pay the administrative fee. BMAX contract, I'm not going to get into the overall arching details of the BMAX deal, but it's suffice to say, I think we all can concur, that when the revelation came out that the directors of BMAX were arrested and eventually let out on bail, that the project with BMAX should have been suspended and put on hold, and there should have been an investigation to determine why our due diligence system went so wrong. Because what are we finding out now? Is that the allegations against BMAX had been going on for years. This wasn't something that just came up overnight. Now, when I, and I'm sure many other persons looking at all of this, believe that the level of insanity has reached a plateau, the government turns around in September. Remember, the guy was arrested in February. Comes in September and makes all the things that the BMAX benefited from retroactive to January. And wants to convince all of us that they're new directors and everything is good, forgetting that the court not only said that the CEO was a criminal, he said the entire organization was a criminal organization. And let's go back to Animal Farm, the pigs and the dogs, and the changing of propaganda. But what is the fact? The fact is, there's no houses. And even if there were houses, the intention was to spend $23 million on 66 homes. That's $1 million EC dollars per home. What kind of low-cost housing are we building for $1 million EC dollars per home? I'm glad that for the first time that the government is showing some level of ambition, because they certainly fell short on the minimum living wage to tell Saint Lucians that $1,000 per month constitutes a livable wage, a minimum living wage. But telling me that you're going to get a low-income house for $1 million EC dollars, that's more like it. But yet there's nothing. There's no evidence of nothing. Let's go back to the statement. This lawsuit had no merit from the outset. Well, in the case of Saint Lucia, MSR has revealed enough evidence that all of us should be shaking to understand the magnitude of the fraud that is being perpetuated against the people of this country. All in the name of what? Equality? So now let's get on to the real issue as to why the case was dropped. It wasn't dropped because it had no merit. That's nonsense. That's a lie. That's propaganda. That's wishful thinking. The reason why the case was dropped was because the government of Saint Lucia invoked immunity. And on page 9, Foreign Sovereign Immunity Act bars the complaint against Mr. Emmanuel. I'm not going to get into the technicalities as to whether he qualifies for immunity or not, but clearly Mr. Martinez, it's his money, his case, decided that that was a bridge too far. It was going to take too long and too much money, and that's not his job. And so what did he do? Instead of pursuing the RICO case, Mr. Martinez has become a whistleblower. Yes. And taken all the hard work and the evidence that he's obtained and given it to the U.S. law enforcement agencies. And he has left that information with us. So in Mr. Martinez's withdrawal of the RICO case, does it make the bank records false? Does it make the contracts with the minister's signatures and everybody else's information, does it make it false? No. The facts remain the same. That's what the government doesn't want you to realize. You can use the immunity for the international courts, but there is no immunity in the court of public opinion in Saint Lucia. And there will be no immunity in the courts of Saint Lucia. Because ultimately, you must be held accountable as to how you've managed the assets of the state. The lawsuit had no merit from the outset. It was a frivolous attempt to undermine the credibility of the Citizenship by Investment program and its management. They have done that to themselves. And they have disrespected the public of Saint Lucia. They have disrespected the institutions of Saint Lucia by not answering and providing the answers. Now, have we seen this before? I dare say that we have. We saw it right here with Jufali against his wife. And it's the same person again. And in the case of Jufali was what? A man who was given a diplomatic post who was not qualified to be in that post, who we never knew was there, and it took somebody else, his ex-wife, and the media in the UK to expose him. That's when we found out as a public. And why was he given a diplomatic passport? To benefit from the immunity of the position. So as being a diplomat for Saint Lucia in the UK, he would be immune from her applying a case against him. History repeats itself again. And in that case, the outcome of that case is the judge ultimately went past the immunity and she was able to get her money. And some people will tell you, oh, nothing happened. Nothing happened? The judge called the appointment of Jufali as spurious. He said it was a sham. And before I get to the the biggest takeaway, is the reputation of Saint Lucia is such that the world believes that Jufali paid the government of Saint Lucia for that immunity. Because in their mind, a man who did not attend any of the meetings, who was not qualified to be the ambassador to the IMO, and the timing of his appointment, and then the use of his appointment as an ambassador, as his defense in his case, only can suggest that there was a collusion. That is what has been left. That's the damage. The damage is our reputation, where the world believes that Saint Lucia and its government and its people have no integrity. That's the damage, the reputational damage. And when we speak about CIP, it is reputational again. But here's what it said. What diplomatic immunity does, said the QC, is put diplomats above the law. There it is, in plain English for us to see. That was the application of immunity that was given to Claude Emmanuel. Was that legitimately used? Or is it to believe that he is above the law? I want to put on notice that may put him above the law in the US, but it's not going to be used or can be used in Saint Lucia. I have said repeatedly, and let me say it again. The opposition and the leader of the opposition's office is not and has not been working in collusion with Mr. Martinez. Mr. Martinez and MSR have been on their own quest to get relief from what they consider to be acts of fraud that have impacted them personally. I've said, Mr. Martinez is going after those individuals. Where our lines cross is that the evidence which Mr. Martinez has unearthed and the revelations that he has made of what took place in St. Kitts with Les Can and Galaxy serve us well here in St. Lucia. Because we're seeing the same thing, and things that we could not explain all of a sudden now make sense. If it had not been for Mr. Martinez, I'm not so sure that we would have been able to have gotten the contracts. Not only the contracts with Galaxy and BMAX, but also the contracts that show that there was discounting taking place, that there was this funding scheme that was taking place between promoters, Galaxy, and the CIP unit to allow the underselling of the passports. Where people are so stupid that all of a sudden you're not selling any passports and suddenly you're underselling and we sell 8,000, 9,000, 11,000 passports? I mean, I wonder again, in my administration in our 5 years, we sold 850 passports. What would have had to have changed in order for that number now to go past 11,000? Mr. Martinez gave us the answer. It's because the passports were not being sold for $200,000. They were being sold for $60,000 and $70,000. The same allegations that were being made against Dominica and St. Kitts and other countries for years, now that practice seemed to have come to St. Lucia, despite all the promises of the government that they were doing the right thing. So this statement by the Labour Party and its propagandist, I think that George Orwell referred to them as the dogs. That's what he refers to them as in his book. Saying that there has been vindication in the decision by Mr. Martinez, there's nothing further from the truth. All the facts remain. There's more questions today than there was ever before. And in fact, the attempt by this government to say that they've been vindicated should make all of us concerned, because that suggests that all the errors that have been taking place, all of the corruption that has been taking place, that there's going to be no attempt to remedy any of these things. Our cries for an explanation as to why those contracts were signed and under those conditions and why we're not getting any money, saying that they've been vindicated means that they're not going to answer those questions. That's what that simply means. But it is clearly not going to work. And if we have to come out on Christmas Eve to refute propaganda and lies from the Labour Party and the deceit of the Labour Party. We will do it. I have indicated that we have been putting together our own court case on this matter, which is a judicial review. A judicial review to ask the courts to intercede, to force the government and the CIP unit and the minister and the prime minister to explain why they would have agreed to the terms with Galaxy. Why would you have gone from 700 files to 11,000 files? Why would you be paying them a commission and we're getting no money? Why would you allow them to obtain all of the money and we have no reports as to where the money is? Why would you not suspend the BMAX deal, given the information that's come to light? That's one. So we think that the government has acted irresponsibly, recklessly, and corruptly. We also believe that the infrastructure program does not have the supporting regulations. How does a person become a promoter? How can you have allowed Galaxy to collect the money themselves directly? How could you allow citizenships to be issued only on the evidence of the administrative fee? How is the CIP unit going to be assured that the infrastructure program is taking place? Here it is now almost, 2 years later? Is anybody in Saint Lucia any the wiser as to what the infrastructure program is? The details? What the project is and how much it's going to cost? We intend to challenge that. And I'm hoping that this case will be filed very soon. And we're also asking the court to impose an injunction, because we believe that any issuance of passports under the infrastructure program, that there's no remedy. So if it is illegal from the onset, then no passport should be issued. I've been in this game now long enough to know that we must anticipate what the Labour Party is going to tell you. Oh, this is a vendetta. Alan Chastney against Ernest Hilaire. I don't like him. It's personal. Or that we were in cahoots with Martinez because Martinez's case came to an end and that was deliberate so that we could start our own case. I want to put those propaganda aside. And let me provide some evidence. The first person to go to the courts to seek relief and make allegations and aspersions was Ernest Hilaire. He took me to court for defamation. On what? On the statement that I said that because of the Jufali matter and the lack of explanation as to why we would have done that I question his integrity? And he turns around and files a lawsuit against me and has made all kinds of allegations. And in defending myself, using what happened with Rovergate, fraud, that's what happened with Rovergate. When he was the High Commissioner, he lied twice to the British. He wrote letters to the British government indicating that the first car that he used belonged to him. But now the evidence has come out that the car belonged to his brother, not him. And that the second car that he bought in his own money, I've said yes, he paid for it his own money. And if he paid for it his own money, why would he have written to the British government to say that they made a mistake and the car does not belong to Tafao Williams? But the car belongs to the state. The definition of fraud is clear. Person who is in a position of authority, using that position to benefit himself. How can I say that? Because we now know he got permission from no one to do that. He never went to his permanent secretary. He never went to the minister. He never went to cabinet. He took it upon himself to transfer those assets into his name and the state's name. That's fraud. We know now that the account that took place that had in the UK with Jufali, because remember, we still don't know why the government did it, but we then found out there was a joint account in the name of the High Commissioner and the Ambassador. And not me, but the Auditor General said that no permission was given or sought to open up the account. Monies that went into the account were sent into Ernest Hilaire's personal account, and no explanation was given. That's the fraud that has taken place. And so when I hear the minister wanting to threaten people, when Rick Wayne said that he should be under a microscope, when Guy Joseph has made allegations against him, when I have repeatedly publicly, and I do it again, call him a fraud. Call him a fraud. You don't want to come after me? Because you know if you come after me, I have the evidence to prove it. You want to go after Nancy Charles? For saying what? Repeating what other people have said? So, the last part of the statement I want to share, and it's more, I'm going to ask questions. It says the program, and that's from the press release from the CIP unit, the program bolstered by partnerships with the other CIB programs in the OECS and collaboration with international stakeholders such as governments, the European Union, the US State Department, and other relevant regulatory authorities has been lauded for its commitment to transparency and good governance. What does that statement mean? What was the purpose of putting that statement there? Are you saying to me that the US State Department and also the British government and the European Union genuinely believe that the lawsuit had no merit from the outset? It was a frivolous attempt to undermine the credibility of the Citizenship by Investment program and its management? Is that what you're suggesting that the US government, the European government, and other governments in this region are saying? This is the propaganda and the nonsense that the Labour Party wants all of us to believe and continues to question the intelligence of the people of this country. Let me say that the statement put out by the CIP unit yesterday is further verification that this government are acting with impunity, and I believe that their actions are tantamount to being treasonous. And I will have a lot more to say on that aspect of what were taking place. But hopefully I've been able to clarify the propaganda put out by the Labour Party and to say that Martinez was always fighting his fight. He has left us with a trail of evidence. And I want to say, we want to tout ourselves as a sovereign country. But in order for people to genuinely believe that we are a sovereign country, we must act as if we are. And those persons, by chance, who believe that Martinez was our hero and he was going to be the person to resolve all the issues and to hold this government accountable, I remind you that we live in a democratic country. And that democratic country requires all of us to participate and all of us to voice our opinions and for us not to live in an environment of fear. And that the only persons that have been aggrieved, the only persons that have been defrauded, and the only fraudsters in this country is the current government of Saint Lucia. And we all must rise together and to right the wrong. And so join us in our protest and put your orange flag on today. Get your orange band and let us get ready to remind the government who really is in charge. It's the people's country, and that this kind of behavior and this acts of treason will not continue in this country. Merry Christmas, and I look forward to active 2025. And I want to again say thank you for all your support, all your prayers, and I want to thank the Lord again for giving me the opportunity to come and speak to you this morning. Thank you.